Let me hear you say yes. Yes!
Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, new proposed gaming legislation prompting hundreds to line Bay Street today in a march for equality. See who's leading the charge and hear the message protesters are sending to the government.
The Defense Force is nearly $1 million richer following a generous donation from our neighbors to the north.
Plus, high school volleyball action. We've got championship highlights. The National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This segment of the news is brought to you by BTC, powered by Lime.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley.
And I'm Kendino Knowles. As always, it's good to have you joining us.
Topping the news tonight, with a majority rule debate on the inside, the House of Assembly, and a demonstration on the outside, the issue of equality drew both support and vehement protest today.
Scores of protesters showed the government with placards, chants, and their presence that they will no longer accept what they call a range of discriminatory practices that give foreign interests an advantage.
Now, we have team coverage tonight of the so-called March for Equality.
Behavior. Let me hear you say yes. Yes!
That was the reaction of passionate Bahamians as they took their fight for equality to Rawson Square. The troops rallied on the historic Southern Recreation Grounds to peacefully march to Parliament and demand equal opportunities for all Bahamians. Wearing white T-shirts, carrying placards and waving the Bahamian flag, protesters shouted, "Discrimination must stop." As they approached Rawson Square, police were on full guard and barricades gave protesters limited access. Nevertheless, the crowds gathered in front of the bust of Sir Milo to get the attention of legislators.
As they come to those hallowed halls of Parliament, we want them to know that the only bill or legislation that we are interested in is the bill for equal opportunity.
As the Prime Minister and other members of Parliament arrived, demonstrators booed and threw jeers. Citizens for Justice Chairman Bishop Walter Hanschel reiterated that the march is not about the contentious proposed gambling legislation, but the larger issue of equality.
The Bahamian people are simply to the point where they've had enough. People try to spin what we are doing and say that we are lobbying for gambling. The devil is a liar. This is not about gambling. This is about equal rights, empowerment for every Bahamian. The people, Bahamians feel as though they have no rights in their own country. So these people that are here are crying out for justice.
Hanschel and organizers also condemned everything from investment opportunities, which they claim favor foreigners, to unequal job opportunities. And they say the time to rise up is now.
Bahamians should be able to own banks, own offshore banks. Why is it that these things are being deprived from us? We need jobs. Most of the people here are not working. The people have no jobs. They're crying out for jobs.
When you look at our country, everybody is coming to our country from all over the world. Everybody is getting, except who? Except who? Guys,
they want to enslave us in our own country.
This ain't no time to be no fool. No. You can't love nobody more than you love your children. But a time must come when we open that window and throw out the bills that oppress us, the laws that keep us separate and unequal.
Organizers say today's march and demonstration will not be the last. In fact, they intend to return to Rawson Square every 30 days if they have to, until they get their message across. And as our Charisma Robinson tells us, Bahamians are in it for the long haul.
Yes, Andrew, Bahamians say they're out here today because they want equal opportunities in this country. They say for far too long, foreigners have been given the advantage.
When are we as Bahamians going to be served as Bahamians? We're watching foreigners come in our own country and take over, but yet we're sitting back. No, we're tired of this. We are Bahamians and we need to be served as Bahamians. They're sitting in Parliament doing majority rule. We are the majority in this country.
Because they say we're not qualified, train us. Don't bring in foreigners. Train us so we can know how to do the job.
We have salt coming out the ground worth billions. We have oil worth billions, and all of us broke. We don't have no university. Our average income ain't where it need to be, and we get no share of this pie.
We are sick and tired of being second-class citizens in our own country.
Wilbert Sears, a T-shirt vendor and father of one, says he knows all too well about being treated as a second-class citizen. A few years ago, he was kicked off a bus because of his disability, and still to this day, he says some bus drivers refuse to stop to pick him up.
I am standing up as a Bahamian fighting for my rights as a disabled.
Alvin Sands, on the other hand, demonstrated against the controversial proposed gaming legislation, even though organizers insist that today's march wasn't at all about the gaming issue.
I don't like the fact that Alison Greenslade says he's going to raid numbers. It's affecting my job. If I lose that job, the few jobs that are out there, what am I going to do? How am I going to provide for my family?
And Marsha Thompson says our leaders must fight for young people such as Alvin Sands because it is his future and the rest of his generation's future that's at stake.
I want to know that when I leave this here earth, my 4 grandchildren and my 2 sons, of whom I live for every day, without fear or favor, that they will know that their mother stood for them when they were not able to stand for themselves.
Assistant Commissioner of Police Stephen Seymour says today's demonstration was a peaceful one. He says organizer Darrell Miller did a good job keeping the crowd of about 200 under control. Charisma Robinson, ZNS Network News.
Now, during this morning's parliamentary proceedings, opposition members took the time out to speak with protesters. National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage also went over when the House took a lunch break. However, Prime Minister Perry Christie chose to bypass the crowd as he walked over to the Cabinet building. Meantime, Democratic National Alliance leader Granville McCartney says this morning's protest is a step in the right direction in letting the government know that the Bahamian people will hold its feet to the fire.
The United States government donated nearly $1 million worth of equipment to the Royal Bahamas Defense Force today, and officials say this will greatly help the country's military arm in its efforts to keep our borders properly manned. The equipment, estimated at a cost of $941,000, will help specifically the performance of the Defense Force's Interceptor-class vessels that help guard against uninvited guests. Junior Commander of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, General Charles Colby, handed over the equipment to Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage and senior Defense Force officers today. General Colby says the donation marks the continuation of a partnership against a common security threat that affects both countries.
It's a question of being vigilant and not taking anything for granted. And so, what we've achieved as a team in our common security interest requires constant vigilance and ensuring that we always keep at the foremost in our minds the security that the people of the Bahamas and the United States expect and what they expect of the American military and the Royal Bahamian Defense Force, and maintaining that vigilance. This program is a mechanism that ensures that we keep that vigilance that's required.
Now, the equipment includes 3 50-foot performance jet docks, 6 engines, 18 stern drives, 6 GPS antennas, 18 turbochargers, 30 boat batteries, and 2 shipping containers of replacement parts. Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage says the spare parts could not have come at a better time, as the vessels, which are frequently used, require more maintenance than usual.
So these vessels are currently operated at more hours per month than many EF vessels in the region. and so consequently the rate of maintenance and repair may be a lot higher. So the timely provision of equipment and provisions by the United States government make it possible for maintenance and repairs to be carried out aboard these vessels which we are so dependent upon.
Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage also gave an update on discussions with the government of the Dominican Republic.
Now, last year, a Bahamian delegation traveled to the DR to talk with officials in an attempt to stop poachers from coming to the Bahamas. The Dominican government had promised to outfit their vessels with tracking systems so that they could be monitored.
Now, while this has not yet happened, Nottage said as of late, officials have not seen as many incidents of poaching.
If you notice, we got a promise from the Dominican government that they would do everything that they could to reduce the amount of poaching pending the completion of our understanding. But if you notice, we haven't had that many apprehensions for poaching during the course of this year. And so I think that they have already started to do some of the things that they're supposed to do.
Now, Dr. Nottage added that as the Royal Bahamas Defense Force prepares for the summer months, which are considered the peak season for illegals attempting to enter the country, manpower is not an issue, but equipment is. The efforts by the government in the coming years expected to resolve that issue, but for the time being, Dr. Nottage says they have to utilize what they have.
MB Bahamas is going to be going on dry dock in Grand Bahama within the next couple of days, if not a week or two. And so we hope to have that refitted to be able to supplement our forces during the course of the summer.
In our first look at weather, radar pictures showing us some shower activity heading our way, especially over the extreme northwest parts of the country. But outside of our studios just now, we have a temperature of 79 degrees under mostly cloudy skies, relative humidity 74%. Your winds out of the southeast at 3 knots, barometric pressure 1,015.3 millibars. It's 29.97 inches, and it is falling. But stay tuned, temperatures around the farming islands, travel and boating forecasts is still to come.
Straight ahead tonight, national health insurance on its way to becoming a reality.
And in sports, we take a look at high school volleyball championships. We've got all the highlights. You're watching The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by Shell Helix Ultra. Performance you can see.